Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Welcome to another episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. First and foremost, my mom pointed out to me that last week that I was biting my nails whenever I was talking with Scott. So I just want to apologize to you all for biting my nails if you were watching the video. Anyways.
That's going to make me start biting my nails.
Just
talking about it.
Well, I mean, like I have nail clippers that sit on my desk. And so, I try to keep, the hangnails at bay and stuff because I'm always doing something and working with my hands and, just rubbing it up against something or, just whatever. It just creates more hangnails. But, I'm trying not to bite my nails, but, I've been watching, a lot of movies with Luke, my middle child. And so we watched all of the newer Planet of the Apes movies that have come out. We watched all the Harry Potters. What are we doing? I don't know. There's just all kinds of movies that he's been wanting to watch. Yeah. And I've just enjoyed watching it with him. But I get anxious.
Yeah.
I get antsy watching movies.
Watching the plot play out and you're going,
just oh, what are those monkeys going to do? And so I just start... So I just start biting my nails. Yeah. It's just something you should have seen it at the end of Lord of the Rings, whenever I was watching it in theaters, or what was the other one? I don't know what I was going to try to say, but there was just any movie that I'm or series that I'm fully invested in, and I'm just oh my goodness. Yeah. I just sit there
it's an anxious tick. I'm the same way. I think that I've been a nail biter since I had teeth. I don't know, the root of it all. It's definitely an anxious tick. I catch myself doing it. And there are times where I don't even realize I'm doing it. Someone has to point it out to me and I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It also I'm a hand washer too, because I know this about myself. I'm I'm washing my hands. I'm washing my hands a lot. A couple of days ago, I was making a bunch of food for Memorial Day weekend, and I thought my hands were going to turn raw because I had washed them so much, just dealing with raw meat and different ingredients, eggs, stuff. And I'm going,
that's so funny.
I'm going to keep my hands washed because Lord knows later tonight I'm going to watch some sort of drama television, and I'll be... what's happening next? As I click away, pick away. Oh my gosh, I don't love it. It's my least favorite habit. But
dude, I'm the same way with hand washing because on Memorial Day we went out to Sam's and we just buy meat in bulk, and then I've got one of those vacuum packers, and we got literally enough meat for the next 4 weeks of meals and stuff because we don't eat out. It's rare.
Yeah.
And so we cook a lot. And so we got a whole bunch of pork. We got a whole bunch of beef. We got a whole bunch of chicken. And I just portion them out for our meals.
Yeah,
so that's whatever we thaw out, that's what we cook. And there's generally never any leftovers, not unless it's vegetables or potatoes or something like that. Something that's real, it's okay to
right.
It's easy to reheat. Anyways, after every single time that you cut up chicken or whatever, then you got to wash everything. It's just whenever you work in a restaurant, you learn food safety and cross-contaminating surfaces and all that other stuff. And by the end of doing all this, it takes me 2.5 hours just to portion everything out and whatnot. And my hands were just raw. Just on the top, just red.
Yeah.
Just because I wash with ultra hot water too.
Right.
That's another way to kill stuff is really hot water.
Yeah, man.
But later on that night, I'm watching the last Planet of the Apes movie with whatever, the Dawn of the Rise of the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, whatever their title is.
That's the one, yeah.
I'm just sitting there, just Oh no, don't kill him.
Oh, will the apes take over?
It's stupid. Those movies make you want to root for the monkeys and tell all the, just death to the humans.
Listen, I don't know. I don't know what kind of angle they're taking, but I remember watching the original ones when I was a kid with my dad.
Like the ones from the 60s?
Yeah. We had them on VHS, and I remember watching them and being like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And it just blew my mind.
Dude,
we were into it.
Whenever the original one came out, and I think it was Charlton Heston that was like the main guy that was the protagonist.
Sure.
Yes. And it was super controversial whenever he kissed the monkey.
Oh, yeah.
They were boycotting that movie.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. This was too real for some people.
Yeah, with my animatronic face.
Gosh.
Yeah, but you want to, yeah.
Anyway.
Everybody goes to Disneyland and takes pictures with those robots and, wants to hug them and stuff. But whenever somebody kisses it in a science fiction movie.
Right. Yeah. Oh, man. Wild.
People are crazy. It's always funny to see what people get like
wound up on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting.
Well, you got some new and exciting things happening in your life. You just got your certification for Symbis.
Yeah. So Paul and I were approached by an engaged couple a while back about some premarital counseling, and I had started Symbis as a premarital counseling organization. It's like a program, and so I actually started going through that last fall, and then I went through the first 2 sessions and just didn't return to it.
Yeah,
just got busy, distracted, fill in the blank, and then this summer we're doing the counseling with this couple, and so Paul and I were like, okay, we need to finish this, let's just wrap it up. And it was a good experience. It was good for us to be reminded of things just within our personal life, but also to be given some tips and tricks, whether it comes to communicating well, listening well, and just little things about what makes relationships work, whether that's stuff that we need to address within ourselves or stuff that we need to be honest about with the other person. It was a good experience, and we're looking forward to doing that this summer. Yeah,
it's one of those things that I don't know the program that we went through whenever Erica and I got married, but I can't tell you that there probably hasn't been a month go by that we haven't relied on something that we learned in premarital counseling. It was it helped us open our eyes to issues that could have been major things down the line.
Yeah.
And just for us to be able to have those conversations, to do that. When does the premarital counseling start for y'all?
June. We're going to do a couple sessions through the summer, and actually have. Oh my gosh, excuse me. I actually have another. I'm officiating a wedding in June, but it's not the same couple. And I reached out to them and asked if they wanted to do premarital counseling because they get. It's beneficial to do anyway.
For sure.
But in a lot of states, including West Virginia, you get a discount on your marriage license if you have proof of marriage counseling.
Really?
And so that was another. I kind of reached out to them. They're long distance. They're from north where I'm from, and I said we can do something online, or if you have a trusted pastor in your area that I'm comfortable with that too. And so they ended up doing that route. They actually just texted me this morning and said they wrapped up counseling yesterday. So that was cool. And it was one of those things where I'm going, well, it's twofold. You're getting something out of it for your relationship, and you're also saving a little bit of money. And not that marriage license is crazy expensive, but when you're especially young getting married, you probably don't have a ton coming in financially. Every little bit helps. And so that's just a little thing. I didn't know that either until we were getting ready to get married. And so some states offer that. West Virginia is one of them.
Does Symbis? This is none of the questions that I've written down, but does Symbis kind of make a recommendation about like what time frame that you should go through premarital counseling? Like, say, wrap up your counseling, 30 days before you get married, or do they recommend kind of like a time frame for individuals, for couples to be able to go through this before they get married?
So that's kind of fresh in my mind. They kind of offer it as circumstantial, depending on what the couple's needs are. And they do you can do a Symbis training, like a marriage counseling, premarital counseling training. You could do like a 1 day and just kind of like powerhouse through it.
Yeah.
It's hours, but that is an option. It could also be spread out over the course of days or weeks, depending on what the availability of the couple and the counselors. And from what I see, it looks like anywhere between like 6 months and to the date looks like a good frame.
Yeah, because as you get closer to the wedding, obviously, last minute things pop up, and you don't want to try to rush because your mind's always going to be like, okay, do we have the right plates and blah, 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 and this and that. And okay, somebody else dropped out. We got to find another photographer or whatever. Like, that's what your mind's on.
Right.
So that's good. Like, about 6 months out gives you plenty of enough time. And whenever you wrap it up, you're not going to be like, okay, we're getting married the next day.
In the training, the couple that they are going through with the training that they use is their like sample couple. It's like they're like 3 months out. But I think that's still, that gives you time. Cause I know from my experience, like as you get closer to that date, I do feel like there are more frustrations that arise because of things that are outside of your control, or that just expectations aren't being met, and you start to feel a little like fussy or irritable, whatever. And I can remember being like, I'm glad that we know how to talk to each other right now, because the version of me about a year ago would have been really upset. And now I feel like, okay, we can do this. Like, we can have this conversation. And that's where going through a situation like that, like you just shared, whenever you've been through some kind of premarital counseling, when issues do arise, you're able to maybe use some of those tips and tricks that you learned in that time to get through it. Yeah.
Sorry, my wife needed a picture of, I learned this in counseling. Don't make her wait. No, I just learned that in 15 years of being together. So one of the things I wanted to ask is, how do you incorporate spiritual guidance with practical advice during these counseling sessions? Because sometimes they're almost kind of like counterintuitive if you think about it, but the marriage of the two is what it all comes down to. Because I think the spiritual advice is great, but it's like almost kind of like you need the application of it and the practicalness of it.
Yeah. Do
they address any kind of like spiritual advice during the premarital counseling?
Yeah. So with the Symbis program, a lot of it is like assessment based.
Okay.
And so that gives some really good like direction of where to head with folks. So it even works for folks who aren't that into the spiritual side of it, because it's assessment based. You can look and see where you fall within your different expectations of marriage, your motivations for marriage, like your personal, like personality, upbringing, when it comes, like, what do you bring to marriage based on your own experiences. And so that if we have folks who, from my understanding, folks who do have the degree of wanting to know, like, what does God think about this, like the spiritual side of it, you can absolutely do that and tie in and here's how it's done based on your assessment level. Like, based on where you scored, you need to understand that this is probably the way you're going to view it. And based on how your partner scored, this is how they are probably going to view this issue. And then creating some action steps to maybe meet in the middle, or create some opportunities for compromise, or just realistic expectations, to be honest. Like, because I think that sometimes we think that our way is the way that everybody thinks. And that's just
nope.
not real. Even if our way is like the quote unquote spiritual way, like even if what we think is aligned with scripture in our mind, like our partner may not be on that same page.
Yeah.
And it's important to find out that information and meet somewhere where you can understand each other.
Yeah. Whenever you were doing your training, was there anything like, okay, this is always like a hot button topic that is generally comes up and kind of like gets, like something, I don't know, it's just anything pops off and it's just like, okay, like we need to navigate this.
Yeah. So one of the
specific ways,
one of the areas that is in the assessment, they're literally red flags.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's red flags that come up in the assessment, and they warn pretty heavily to tread lightly on those. Like, hey, you don't want to like bring somebody's like baggage in a way that it turns them into like a monster or a criminal.
Yeah.
Their life experiences are theirs. They can't change that.
Yeah.
Like they can't go back and edit those things. They are red flags, but that doesn't mean that they can't move forward. And so there is a section where it really gives a lot of tips on whenever you get that assessment, and there are things, and it could be things like maybe they've experienced abuse in the home growing up, or maybe they'd experienced divorce in their family, or they've experienced just unhealthy relationships as a child, like viewing that from their parents or grandparents or whatever.
Yeah.
Those can come up as red flags in the assessment. And so when addressing those things, address them in a way that's like, hey, listen, these things weren't your fault, but you still experienced them. Like, let's consider, what do you think about that playing a role in your future marriage and this kind of relationship you have? Because no one wants to talk about that stuff for the most part.
Yeah.
But ignoring those things leads to the potential downfall in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, that was not to get into like too much personal stuff, just because I'm not at liberty to discuss it. But that was just an instance that happened with Erica in her childhood, and it greatly changed the way that I approached situations with her.
Yeah.
Just because of what she had gone through, and that was brought up in our marriage counseling, and it was the first I'd ever heard of it, obviously, because we'd only known each other for maybe like 5 months.
Yeah. Even then, we don't want to, people naturally, you don't want to bring up those things unless it's brought out.
Correct.
Like, because that's not pleasant.
Yeah. Yeah. And going through like the foster classes that we're doing, it's just like, how do you, react, and how do you provide a safe space for people that have gone through something extremely traumatic. I think it's marrying Erica obviously made me a better person. And just the way that I see things, but also going through like crisis management and stuff like that you go through with, foster care or whatnot. It's just like, how do you approach situations? How do you take a step back and don't let your stupid ego get in the way of thinking that you can fix anything and everything? Because I'm a dude, and that's the way I think. I look at a problem and I go, I could fix that. I could build that. I can make that better. And sometimes that's just not the case. Sometimes you just have to, especially in marriage, like sometimes you just have to take a step back and just go, okay, I just need to give you a little bit of space. I need to give myself some space, and maybe if this is something that we can talk about without blowing up or anything like that, then, but I do want to like talk about this if you're willing to later. Because so many times we're just like, well, I just don't understand why you just can't do this, and this, and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I know I've had that conversation. Have you had that conversation with Paul? Just in the spirit of being vulnerable. And it's like, no, like this whole marriage thing it's not just I get to take and take and take, because that's very selfish of me to be able to have these conversations. I have to give not only every ounce of my love, but I have to understand whenever I've got to give space as well. I've got to understand when to give like no talking moments.
Yeah, no, it's true. And like for me, I grew up in what would be considered like a really great upbringing experience. My parents were married, still married to this day.
Yeah.
I had both parents, mommy and dad, in the home. I saw a lot of really good examples of like how to care, and some examples of not as great, but still learning from those things.
Yeah.
And then Paul's came up. His parents split up when he was young, and then ended up with his mom went through a health situation that left her disabled for the remainder of her life. And so it was a two really unique people trying to merge and create a relationship that works. And I mean, it has been a journey. Even still, we will have been married 10 years this year. Yeah. And it's still like we're learning things all the time. I think one of the huge things for us was when I was 29, I started going to counseling personally, just because I have a history of mental illness in my family, and I wasn't really feeling some sort of way. I just, with a job working with people, and really especially within pastoring, like you hear people's struggles and you experience losses with people. And there were moments where I thought, man, this is heavy and I feel okay now, but what is this going to feel like in 5 years?
Yeah.
Like if it keeps up, if like this heaviness continues, what happens in 2 years, in 3 years? Like I feel good now, but what if I don't later? And so I started going to counseling, and it was so helpful to me, like so helpful, because it gave me words and ways to deal with things that I just didn't know. Yeah. And it's of no fault of anybody in my past. It's just when you don't know, you just don't know. Yeah. And as I started to learn how to communicate better and like when to say things instead of just what to say, in addition how to say things, those moments of frustration, they continued, but it seemed like they just became less and less. And as Paul started to see like, oh, she's not interested in arguing right now. What's that about? Yeah. It was like, well, because I've learned that this isn't getting anywhere. And so we've changed the ways. And he's then come along and said like, okay, like what is going on? And he started counseling in 2021 because he's like, this clearly has helped you. Like you're in a better place. I can see it. It's affected me. It's made my life better. And so like even beyond our premarital counseling, there's been other things that have come along, and it's just made things better. Like, and I'm thankful for that, because I know that in those moments, I haven't been in counseling for about 1.5 years, in moments where things get like heated or whatever, and I'm just thinking, oh, I could switch back to my old wildness in a second. I'm able to like look back at my notes or look back at something and be like, oh wait, no, this is why I handle it that way instead. Like this is the better way. It's not just the way that is harder, but it's better. Yeah. Because sometimes it just feels harder and you don't want to do what's more difficult. Yeah. But if it's better, then that's just better.
How have your own experiences with counseling influenced your approach to helping others on their faith journey?
Yeah, I think just big part.
I mean, you work with youth. Yeah. I mean, they're figuring things out on the daily. So
for sure. I think really at the end of the day, it just comes down to like just being transparent and being like vulnerable in that way and saying, hey, this is actually how I ended up feeling like in that situation, instead of trying to like pretend it's something else or like cover up my feelings. Just being realistic and vulnerable. I know there's been times, I mean, I'll even just this past weekend, I had some things just did not go the way that I planned last week at all. Like literally I felt like everything I touched, you know, the Midas touch, everything turns to gold. I had like the mucus touch, everything turned to snot. All right. Everything I touched became garbage, and it was just so frustrating. And so I was just like, by the time Sunday came around, I was like, what am I doing? Like, and the team that I had working on Sunday, they could just see something was off, and they're like, hey, and I said, listen, I'm not in the right mind today. Like, and I'm so sorry about that. I'm going to do the best, whatever. And they were so generous. Like, and I feel like if I would have just smiled and been like, I'm fine. Like they would have,
they already saw that something was
right.
wrong.
But I think that they wouldn't have been as generous.
Yeah.
Like, I think they wouldn't have come along and been so like, it's okay. We'll take care of that. We'll take care of this. We'll take care of that. And I was just so grateful. And I really do believe it's because I was just honest with how I felt in that moment. Like, just really, really honest with it. And they were like, okay, like, we've had days like that. We get it. And so that's where I try to pull that in, what I learned through that counseling. Because I did grow up really kind of in the era of, man, if you've got issues, that's fine, but you just don't talk about it. Like, everyone knows everyone's got issues, but you just kind of keep that to yourself. Yeah. And I think that was just how people dealt with things. And I don't know, I just don't agree with it now. I'm in this phase in life where I'm going, I don't know that actually works the way that we thought it did. And so just being honest and telling folks like how things really can be, because we actually see that in scripture time and time again with different people that we meet when God is like interacting with them, the moments where they're just real with God and honest about it. Like, he's there. Like, he's doing stuff. Like, he's working in their life, either bringing people into their life, he's stepping into their life, pulling them out of a situation, like whatever it is, like he shows up. And that's where like I've just come to terms with it too. Like, for me to help lead other people spiritually because of my experiences, it comes down to just being really honest about where I'm at and letting them know it's okay for you to do this too. Yeah. But also, if you're not ready, you're not there yet, that's okay. But just know that there is space for you to try this. Like, there's space for you to trust God in your situation and others. And that can be tricky, especially if you've tried to trust people in the past, because people aren't perfect, but God won't let you down. Yeah.
What are your hopes for the future of pastoral counseling, especially in the context of marriage and mental health support?
Oh, man. Well, I definitely would like to get connected with more like local counselors, because I'm not a professional. But I do think that I have a short list currently that I kind of give out when parents are like reaching out. Hey, my kid's really struggling. Like, do you have any contacts? I have just a couple, and I say, hey, here's some folks that I know. I don't know their availability, but I know that they'll take good care of your kiddo. But just kind of maybe getting more into that, having more resources for people to curate a list of folks to reach out to, because like I said, I'm not a professional. I'm not opposed to moving forward in that route someday, but I also know that there are so many great people that are already existing in that lane of professional counseling and mental health care that we could just build up their clientele and build up what they're doing, and be an additional spiritual resource, like a faith resource for them too. Like, if they have students or individuals who are seeking counseling, but they're interested in a faith aspect of it, I would love to be a resource on that end. Like, say, hey, how does my mental health deal with my spiritual health? Well, it's huge. Like, you feeling anxious, you feeling worn out, you feeling like you're just like taking L's left and right. Like, well, did you know that God has already deemed victory over your life? He's deemed peace over your life. It comes through Jesus. What does that look like for you? Like, and just coming at that angle, that's kind of some of what I see down the pipeline.
Yeah. I think one of the things I'd like to see is that the stigma around just being open and talking to someone who's like a licensed professional, and genuinely seeking help, like, it's okay. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, it just, for some reason, there's always, and I think it's gotten a lot better, obviously, since I was like a kid, but you know, they were just, if people were struggling or something like that, they just stick them in a psychiatric hospital and, you know, just medicate them. And I just don't, that's not the right way to do it, obviously.
I think but those are very rare circumstances.
For sure, but
very rare.
But just, you know, just, I think the stigma around it, just like, it's okay to talk to people, and people are not going to judge you because of it. Yeah. And like standing up for the people that genuinely do need the help and putting people in their place whenever they say, they should just get over it. Like, you're an idiot.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think that there are moments where, cause like I'm not seeing anybody right now, but I'm still using those resources and tools. Mm-hmm. In a similar way, I started meeting with a physical trainer a little over a year ago, and it's not because I don't know how to like do a push-up. It's not because I don't know how to walk on a treadmill. It's because I just need someone to tell me what to do for me, for my situation, for my health concerns, for my schedule, for my lifestyle. Like, I need it to be a little bit more curated for me. Yeah. And in addition to that, the accountability aspect, if I have a standing appointment with somebody every week to see me make progress, that has helped tremendously. Like, I have had more success in my health journey in this past year than I have in the last 5 years of trying to do it on my own. Yeah. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to mental health. Like, the more that we're willing to say, like, yeah, actually, I do know how to take deep breaths. I do know how to read scripture. I do know how to pray. I do know how to keep my mouth shut. I do know how to walk away. But maybe it wouldn't hurt to have somebody help curate those things in a way that best fits my family and my lifestyle and my job requirements and my, personality even. Yeah. Like, because they're a professional, just like my trainer knows, like, can look at like my body type and look at my readings and whatever and say, like, okay, I think we need to activate this muscle group today. It'll really help this XYZ. And I just nod and go, okay. And then I see, 3 months later, holy cow, that worked. Yeah. I would have just been going and like sweating and been like, good job today, Anna. Yeah. But they were able to say, no, for you, this is what's going to happen. Yeah. And I think the same thing happens when we reach out to mental health professionals. They're going to help us reach those goals in a way that we just couldn't do on our own. Oh, that's so good. That was a good analogy. Well, that's going to fit in with my casserole later. All right. Well, let's get to your casserole. Way. Yeah, it's time. It's time for the roll. Okay, you guys, listen. On this episode of the Pastor's Potluck podcast, this is Nana's Casserole, brought to you by Nana, which is me, Anna Blake. And today's casserole is really, you're just going to love it, because I found something on the internet. I'm quoting the internet. This is found on the internet that absolutely agrees with what I was going to write and bring anyway. So now I have someone backing me up. This is from psychologytoday.com, and they're listing quirky ways to boost your mood and your mental health. Well, that's it for today. No, these are so good. Don't cut me off. Don't cut it. Okay. The first one is find a metaphor that captures what you're going through. So finding some kind of story to depict to help others understand where you're at. And it could be silly or it could be serious, like whatever that looks like. And creating an abstraction here on the quoting the internet says creating an abstraction can help us see stress from a different vantage point. And I thought that was so good. Yeah. Can you think of an illustration that you've had to use to like express how you felt? I'm terrible with like analogies, but like if I'm trying to tell somebody, like give me a situation. Okay. Let's say you are, oh my gosh, there's crazy traffic and like you're late for work and it's freaking you out. How do you feel on the inside? Give us an analogy of how you feel. I don't freak out in traffic. Dang it. We got to do something different. I do. I freak out in traffic. Because I'm grateful that I have a car. Oh, gosh. One of those people. So I'm worshiping through what everybody else is getting frustrated. You were really excited about lunch. And when you went to open it, I don't know what happened, but it was moldy. Oh, dude. Yes. All right, so if I go to open up lunch and I'm really excited about lunch and I open it up and I'll just say, I wouldn't say moldy. I would say like I might swap my lunch with my kids. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Like, have you ever swapped something? Mm-hmm. I don't know a good analogy for this. But you're thinking about it because that's what I've heard. Have you ever put on your husband's socks? Oh, there we go. I love it. That's so great. You're like,
the whole rest of my day is ruined because I'm wearing his stupid stocks.
See, perfect. See, exactly. So when you're going through a stressful moment, I had to do this.
That wasn't as good as I was planning.
Okay.
But sometimes whenever I do analogies, like
it does help you.
I'll be talking to somebody. I'm like, well, this is what this and this and that, and I'm like, you know what I'm talking about, right? And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like why would we're talking about my car problems, and you're like talking about like hot dogs and people putting wrong condiments on hot dogs.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I had this exact scenario
but you know
happen.
their pain, right?
I get it.
It's similar.
This is why professionals exist, people.
I know, I need one.
I was having a really horrible mental health day not so long ago, and my husband Paul, who never has a bad day, that's not true, but he seems like a person who never has a bad day. Like he always can look for like the positive in a day. He's like always 100, like always like looking for the best in every situation. And I'm like, boy, you're crazy, because there are some days that are just not great. But anyway, I was having a just not great day, and he was just like, just help me understand. And as I'm like laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I go, okay, listen, I'm in our old Ford Ranger. And he goes, okay. Because we had this old jankety Ford Ranger stick shift, and the clutch had a sweet spot. Like you had to hit it or you were just jacked. And so I go, Paul, I'm in the old Ford Ranger. And he's like, okay. I said, and I'm on a hill. And he goes, okay. I said, and there's a line of cars behind me. He's like, all right. I said, and I just stalled out. And he goes, oh, shoot. And I go, that's how I feel right now. And he was like, I am so sorry. Yeah. Like I was able to create this like picture, this illustration. And he was just like, okay, I'll just leave you alone. Do you need anything from me? And I said, no, not right now. I have to just think about how to get the engine started again. And he was like,
that's what I love about your husband. You tell him any story or something that you've gone through, he's there with you.
He's with it.
It's like he was experiencing, like he was like, oh, I know.
He's crazy.
I remember. And you're like, Paul, like you didn't grow up with me in Louisiana. What are you talking about? I know, but I feel like I do. Like, keep going. Like, I'm like, I don't want to keep going. This is weirding me out right now, Paul. I love that about him so much.
He's crazy.
He's
dude.
there. He's for you. He's there with you.
Yes.
He's going through it with you. Like he's like, dude, that was like he puts himself in your shoes.
I know.
Like he is living out your experience.
Yeah.
So whenever you were telling him that story, telling me that story just
He's
now, like I know what his face. I knew all of his mannerisms and.
Oh my gosh.
Like he's just concerned, and he's like, oh yeah, the Ford Ranger, and then it's slowly shifting to like, oh no.
Literally, it was like he could feel, he was in that driver's seat moment. He just was like, that's what your brain feels like? I said, yeah. He goes, I'll just leave you alone. Okay. Anyway, so first was find a metaphor to capture what you're going through. Second, which I think is really good. I do this a lot. I think a lot of folks do this to cope with stress and mental health. Don't shy away from humor. You know that if we sometimes, like I use the phrase, I've heard myself say it, like, man, if I wasn't laughing about it, I'd be crying about it. But it's true. Like sometimes like when you're about to crack, just decide to crack up instead. Like it's one of those moments where you're going, man, this is tough. Like what if a joke really just helped me laugh about something?
I like to laugh at my problems because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I really cannot believe like we've been put through it, Erica. Yeah. Like we are going through it. Like, and I just start laughing and she's like, why are you laughing? And you should be freaking out. I'm like, I don't know. It just makes me feel better about knowing that I know maybe 2 weeks from now, all of this will be fine and it'll be worked out. But in the middle of it, we just don't know. And I just want to laugh right now. I've done that before.
It's true. And I think that like there is a level of laughing about it as a coping mechanism to avoid the things, but to laugh and recognize that like, oh, I'm doing this because things aren't so hot. And then being willing to address why they're not. Like, again, I can laugh about it right now, but I need to still figure out a solution. We still need to figure out why this is the way it is. Like, let's laugh about it, but let's solve it too. Yeah. And not just like laugh and walk away, but laugh and like let's find a solution. That's just huge. The next thing on the list is embrace your weirdness. Do you understand this one?
That is, I just need a shirt that says that. That's yep. Well, we're good.
Embracing your weirdness can just allow, like in my experience, like when it comes to like mental health and stress, sometimes when I do something and I'm like embarrassed, or like in those moments where then the embarrassment can add stress over top of like stress already.
Yeah.
Specifically in social situations, being able to just be like, and that's just who I am.
Yeah.
And embrace it. Like it gives you a freedom. Like, especially if you're a person of faith, like knowing that like God loves me even though I'm like this.
Yeah.
Like, and being like, God loves me and he gave me some of these quirks that I have about myself, and to just embrace those and be like, this is just who I am. Specifically in our weirdness, some of the social awkwardness, there's a lot of freedom in that, because the stress comes from trying to cover up who you are. Like, have you ever tried to pretend to be someone you're not?
Anytime I meet anybody new,
Yeah.
all the switches go off.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because I realize that I am like a ball of energy, and complete randomness comes out of my mouth, like at all hours of the day. And I also understand that that's a lot to whenever you meet somebody like brand new.
Oh yeah.
Like whenever my first couple weeks here, introvert, I was like, I don't want these people to quit their jobs because they have to work with me. But now that I've been here for 4 years, like, you know, there's like a level of trust where like, and y'all understand, I guess, that side of like my comedy and my, like, I'm stupid vocal about certain things in life.
I mean,
and I don't mind telling people that they need to quit spending money.
I mean, that's part of who you are. And what I think is, like, when we're trying to be somebody else, that creates more stress than just being ourselves.
Yeah.
Like trying to like be someone who's like cool or like mysterious or like whatever, like, because I work with teenagers and they're like always trying to be somebody else, but they are so cool, like themselves. Like if they are just themselves, everyone wants to be around them. And the couple kids who do want to just be themselves, like people just like flock to them, like the kids who are just totally themselves. And that's so huge. And I think that, I don't know, even adults, like we start to forget that just like embracing our weirdness and being who we are can really help our mental health and our stress levels, and just be there.
Dude, whenever you said that kids, you know, kind of try to be something that they're not, the one image that popped in my mind. So whenever MTV used to do like the video or the MTV movie awards and stuff like that, and they gave away the golden popcorn or whatever.
Yeah.
There was this one year that Jim Carrey won one of the movie awards or something like that, but he didn't go up and accept it as himself. Like he was dressed like as a hippie with like long hair and a big long beard and stuff. And
amazing.
And you're like, dude, like I know who you are. like originally, like you're not that person. It's still a funny instance because you're like, why are you dressed like that, dude?
He's embracing his weirdness.
but I guess the analogy is like we all know, like
we know who you really are.
We know who you really are.
We know who you really are. Yep. Second to last, strike up a conversation with a total stranger. Because life is awkward, because like especially in the last few years, like global pandemic has really separated people from people. There are some opportunities that micro interactions can actually boost your mood and a sense of belonging. So like when you're at the grocery store, when you're at the checkout, when you're in the parking lot putting your cart away, when you're doing these like at the, did I say gas station? I don't remember. I think I did. When you're at these places and you have an opportunity to just like say hello to somebody or thank you for holding the door, or like you see them doing something that maybe you would do, be like, oh, I do the same thing. Like just some type of micro interaction can really boost your mood.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm a big micro interaction person.
Yeah.
My best friend back home, Laura, makes fun of me for my micro boosting or my micro interaction boosts. My micro boosting. Oh boy, that's a different thing. But
You're thinking of dosing.
That's it. Micro dosing. That's a totally different day.
Yeah.
But she'll be like, she'll mock me when she sees me. She'll go like, "Oh my gosh, I love that shirt," and I'm like,
dude, I do stuff like that.
I'm like,
though.
listen, it makes me feel good to make someone else feel good. So when I'm out and about and I see someone, I like their shirt, I like their shoes, I like their hair. I can tell. I did this at the airport with Paul. We were at an airport one day. This girl had fresh hair. I could tell it was fresh. It was so cute, and she had like her little edges were all like smooth and beautiful, cute little wavy curly. And I go, "Girl, did you just get your hair done? Your edges are so cute." And she goes, "Oh my gosh, I did last night. Thank you so much. No one has said anything yet." And I go, "Well, looks like you're going to kill today because you're already killing it." And she was elated, like thrilled. And Paul goes, "How did you know that?" I said, "I just looked. Like, I'm just looking at these people."
Yeah.
And he goes, "You just like be looking at people?" I'm like, yes, it makes me feel good. And the fact that she was so excited made me have a boost of dopamine. Like,
I do that with people, like whenever they're going into like a store behind me, like, and they're like far out. Yeah. Like they just got out of their car and I'm walking through the door. I will stand there and hold the door open for that person.
That's wild.
And just wait. And like, I'm like, "Hey man." Like, it's so stupid, but it makes my day. It makes their day. Like, everybody's good. Like, it's okay. Like, sometimes this is not, sometimes I find myself like moving slower at the grocery store if I know that there's like an old woman in the line, like in the aisle, just in case she ever goes, "Hey, that's up on the top shelf. Do you need help?"
Wow.
Like, "Can you help me out?"
Yeah. And
like,
that would make you feel good.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Shoot.
I love it.
Oh, y'all got to get in on these.
It's just if you open up your eyes and just like, okay. Because somebody's going to, especially like old people too, you know, because most of the time, I shouldn't say most of the time, maybe half of the time, you know, they're either going to be a widower or something like that. And what a way to like make someone's day is by taking a couple of seconds and just acknowledging someone's there. You don't know if someone's just like lost their job and, you know, the previous month their spouse left them and took all the kids and stuff and their life is on like collapse mode. Yeah. Like everything around them is crumbling, and just taking the time to acknowledge people. Yeah. It's so funny. Like just simple, stupid things. If you could just find things to say and repeat to people, because nobody's going to hear that joke ever again. Yeah. Like if you're walking around the grocery store and you accidentally almost like bump carts, like going around a corner or something like that. Like I always stop and like it's really fast. Yeah. And they're like, "Ooh, I'm sorry." I'm like, "Oh no, don't worry about it. I got good brakes." Like I say that to people.
Oh my.
And they're like, "Oh dude, that is so good." It is cheesy. It is cheesy, so but the smile on people's faces whenever you say stuff like that, because they've never heard anything like that.
And even if they think it's cheesy, like cheesy dumb, who cares? You still are going to make them laugh by that. Yeah. Like they're still going to walk away going like, "What a dummy. Ha ha ha."
Like they'll go home and talk to their spouse or their kids like, "Dude, okay, listen to this. This idiot."
All right, folks, there it is. Get out there and do those micro interactions. They'll either make you look like an idiot or not, but you're going to love it either way.
Dude, it's great. It's awesome. I like just chatting with people too, especially like the shirt thing or something. You know, somebody's wearing a shirt, like a movie or whatever. Yeah. Wow, dude, I love that movie.
Yeah, it's great stuff. All right, and the last one, to help boost your mood or mental health, a quirky thing you can do is break into a childhood song.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like childhood friend's home.
No.
Break into a childhood friend's home. I was like, dude, that'll boost your mood.
It'll boost something.
Boost your adrenaline running from them cops. But I seriously thought that's what you were going to say.
Childhood songs and sounds. This is something that Paul and I do a lot in our relationship. Not like every day, but We have a couple go-to jingles in our relationship, and I know that that's strange, and some people are like, what? We're embracing the weirdness because we're trying to take care of our mental health and boost our mood. And we have a couple jingles that on Monday we were getting ready for folks to come to the house, and I was just not feeling amazing anyway, and then just getting a little bit wore out from, washing my hands 800 times and all this other stuff. And Paul goes, do we need to sing the song? And I look at him and I said, not right now. And he's like, okay, we'll see. And we didn't sing it, but a lot of times we do. We have a little song, and I'm not going to sing it on this pod, but if anybody wants to know it, I will do it for them if they ask me to my face.
Is it like I don't know, is it a song that you can listen to on Apple Music, or is it a song?
No, it's a song that we made the lyrics. It's a parody to so
okay, just so y'all approach her at church.
But it has helped us, like, having those little things. And then we both like grew up going to like camps, so there's different camp songs we know, or just like, okay, so Paul, his name is Paul, and do you remember the Nickelodeon Three-Eyed Monkey? And at the end he would go, my name is Paul.
No.
You know this? You familiar with this? Okay. Well, that's embarrassing.
It was like the company that produced the like the cartoons and stuff, or the shows.
It was like this little, this little production group would come up at the end with their little thing.
Gotcha.
And it was like this little monkey. And so different times, like when people in our life, or even us, will just do that little, my name's Paul.
Yeah.
And it just brings us a tiny boost of happiness. Like,
it's
not wild, but it's enough that when we're in like a wonky place, to just let that loose and be like, okay, yeah, that's funny. Okay, let's not be disrespectful anymore. Let's have a good day.
Yeah.
But having different songs and childhood memories, like sounds and things, can just help boost your mood and your mental health. And this is Nana Casserole approved.
That was a good one. I think you got more than you bargained for with that one.
I agree.
With that casserole.
I did.
Uh-oh.
I did indeed.
All right, left or right?
Okay. Left.
All right. Mystery meat question. For those of you who have never tuned in, or maybe have forgotten what the mystery meat is a whole bunch of really random questions that are in this jar. And some of them are random. Some of them are kind of serious. Some of them are way out there in left field. But I never know what it is. You never know what it is. And this is a good one. If you could witness any event from the Bible as a bystander, which one would it be and why? That's cool.
Okay. Was a bystander?
Yeah.
Do you know one?
I think that there's several that come to mind. I know that I wouldn't want to see people get thrown into a fire and not burn. My anxiety would just spike through the roof.
Yeah, it freaked me out. I was kind of thinking through some of that stuff. Like, I was even thinking, like, seeing the sea split in half, like in dry ground, would be amazing. But if I was a bystander, that probably meant that I was either
about to die, chasing after them.
Yeah. You read my mind.
Yeah.
That's where I was going. I'm going, well, if I'm not a part of this, I'm just a bystander. There's a chance I don't want to see that.
I think it would be cool if, like, you could, like, realize, like, the feeding of the 5,000 and just seeing, like, that whole situation play out.
It'd be wild.
Like, if you were, like, really close to the disciples whenever they asked the boy, like, hey, dude, like, let's give me your lunch.
Yeah. Like, it would be wild to be like running away from like a city, and then you look over and like your neighbor named Lot, his wife all of a sudden became a pillar of salt. And you'd be like, heck to the no.
Dude, what if you were behind her by like 30 feet or something like that? You were behind her and she turns around and you're like, I wonder what oh my gosh, I'm not looking at what she looked at. She just turned into
that would be crazy.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy. Yeah, no, I think really a lot of things would be amazing to see. I do think seeing an entire like waterway split in half would just be unreal. Like it would just be, oh my gosh, what a crazy thing.
Yeah, and if you were like a bystander with like you just get poofed there and Jesus is getting born and you're like,
Oh yeah.
what's that baby doing? Because you're just an animal.
Okay. I think we've met the limit of this podcast.
I mean, that's a bystander, right? At the birth of Jesus. Like
That's a bystander.
Oh my gosh. We're wilding out. All right, guys. We hope that a lot of this laughter has prepped you for a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next Friday for another episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. You can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.